My name is Alejandra Alayza. I'm a Peruvian sociologist. I'm the head of office in OXFAM in Peru. I'm talking from Lima. I'm in the summer, and I will try to bring some perspective from the South and some reflection about inequality from Peru. Thanks for the invitation. Thanks to OXFAM Canada, thanks to the Walrus and all the people that is sharing this talk. I will start with a question, and maybe we don't know much about Peru, but we can use Peru as a country in the South that has been well known as an economical miracle and in the past 10, 15 years. And the question for me is, how does my country, Peru, which was worldwide recognized and celebrated with a lot of international clapping as an economical miracle, has been able to become the country with the most death from COVID per 100,000 inhabitants in the world? Where were all the promises of the decade of the economical miracle? Where was all the money that it was necessary when it was necessary to save more than 200,000 Peruvian lives? We feel that COVID crisis, in a way, it was like the Emperor's New Clothes story. COVID naked the Peruvian model and the global inequality crisis. As some colleagues mentioned before, inequality does kill. And we can saw it in Peru in a very dramatic way. A model based in promoting markets and deregulation as a way to actively promote private investment. A model in Peru that did the primary export model focus on promoting destructive industry sectors, mining in particular, where in fact, Canadian investors play a real relevant role. And you know, how does it work, not just in Canada, but how does it work in other countries as well as my country, Peru. This model that promote extreme inequality have been promoting private health and private education as a priority, where public investment falls extremely short for the basic and do not support the well-being for the majority. This model that was successful to attract investment in a way, but it was not successful enough at all generating opportunities for workers. You can imagine an economy that was well recognized as an economical miracle, where 70% of the workers were informal employees with no rights or not stability. Can you imagine how do we face the COVID crisis with this Peruvian miracle? So COVID made the Peruvian miracle explode in our faces. It really showed us the trap. The big figures of the GDP that everyone was clapping on the model didn't for real became opportunity for all. The collapse in our health system during COVID, it really showed it clearly. And as we mentioned, it really showed how inequality for real kill. After a decade of growth, private health services had expanded in Peru. Public investment in the most essential health system was not enough. And despite of the fact in the last 20 years, Peru was the country that grew the most by GDP in South America and with the lowest inflation, Peru was one of the countries with the lowest spending on public health per capita. In South America, just Bolivia and Venezuela had lower rates, but Peru, with that big figures in terms of GDP, didn't put the money what people really needed. In 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, Peru had less than 300 intensive care hospital beds for a country with more than 30 million inhabitants. It means around one intensive care unit for every 100,000 inhabitants. One of the lowest beds per capita in South America. And we must say, it was not best enough, but most of them were concentrated in Lima, our capital. So the inequality for a post-colonial country with a really concentrated way to organize the state, the resources, and the public services as private services really let us as a country face the COVID crisis in the worst position. It was not just the crisis of the intensive care units. In 2021, we faced another tremendous crisis, what we call the oxygen crisis. I don't know if you have in Canada. I can imagine that you didn't. What was an oxygen crisis? There was no public services nor private services enough for people that get COVID. So people attend them in their houses. So we saw how families queue up for weeks doing online, trying to access to oxygen tanks. In a monopolistic market with no regulation, with no market competitions, prices rise exponentially, leaving family in bankrupt and many people with no opportunities and no oxygen access. What does it mean? It was a way to kill. It was a way that we can express how inequality kills. The market competition hypothesis on the model did not work at all. This drama shows us how the health policy from the past decade that can take the opportunities of the big figures, again, was principally oriented to promote health markets and private investment with very, very limited regulations. By weakening public services on health, Peru postpones its obligation to guarantee the right to health. When the crisis reached its limit and poor and even rich people it was really hard to access to health because the level of the crisis here was tremendous, everyone turned to see the state again. Yes, they asked the state, the same state that for years they tried to weaken. They asked for compensation and on the economical sectors, and they asked for solutions. But how the state that they've been pushed to move forward in terms of promoting the market and promoting investment as the principal gold rule of development it was can afford and can face the crisis that we can see during COVID. It really was tremendous. Today, Peru is sadly known as the country with the highest number of orphans due to COVID. More than 90,000 children in Peru are orphans because of COVID. The COVID crisis has been brutal. All the world is suffering. But countries as Peru and other southern countries, COVID, it's been a catastrophe, a real catastrophe for the present and for the future. Getting out of COVID crisis is not just about the same recipes. And that's why this discussion is so relevant. We really need to think out of the box. We really need to focus on redistribution. We really need to focus on where is wealth. We really need to focus on how to regulate to promote real access for the majority. And it's not just about rethinking, it's rethinking the model, and we need to bet on the strategies for real redistribution and sustainability. The challenge is not discussing about how do we recover for the COVID crisis. And recover, it seems for us, is like doing the same thing that we've been doing in the past. It's not simply recovering the bad jobs for the poor people. What we are asking for is about how to restructure this model to phase out the inequality crisis that COVID has aggravated and this inequality crisis that is pushing people for a really, really, really risky situation that it's affecting their future and the future generations.